He's one of the industry's most respected executive recruiters. He's the founder and CEO of the DEDIC Group and the host of DEDIC TV, Jason DEDIC.
Hello everyone, I'm Jason DEDIC, and thanks a lot for listening to DEDIC TV. To kick off DEDIC TV, I've decided to make a few episodes on topics and questions that I get on a daily basis. Being that I am the founder and CEO of an executive search firm, I want to cover this question: when should we use an executive recruiter? Now, there's a lot of reasons and a lot of scenarios that I'll cover as to when and why you should use an executive recruiter. But in my opinion, the most important reason is when you want to evaluate every potential candidate in the industry, not just those candidates openly available or the ones that you already know. Now, it's a tough situation, and I see it every day. An organization will decide not to go out to search because they've already found a potential candidate. The major issue is this: can an executive guarantee that that is the strongest potential candidate in the industry? The answer is always no, because they have yet to evaluate that candidate against anybody else. When an organization goes out to search for a new CEO, you'll never, and I mean never, have just one candidate. There will always be a short list created to be interviewed, typically 3 to 5 executives. This is because recruiting the wrong CEO could be detrimental to the entire business. Why should only interviewing one candidate be acceptable for, say, operational or strategic roles within an organization? Now, this is typically the answer, because a company doesn't want to pay a fee if they've already identified a candidate. Now, I understand the thought, but how expensive will it be to hire the wrong executive in that role? By basing any hiring decision off of one person, you're putting all of your eggs in one basket. Before hiring anybody for any level role within an organization, I challenge you to ask yourself this question: is this the strongest candidate in the industry, or is this the strongest candidate we've interviewed? Another reason you might want to use an executive recruiter is because the search is confidential. When a search is confidential, you want somebody with existing relationships with the executives that will need to be contacted and interviewed for this role, and know that that executive recruiter will keep those conversations confidential. Also, a recruiter does not advertise or openly market that position online. This will make sure that the only people that actually know about this role are the executive recruiter and the executive that they're interviewing. Another reason, and it kind of ties into that, when somebody's currently in the role. When somebody's currently in a role, confidentiality is even more important. If the current executive finds out that you've gone out to search, they're guaranteed to begin a search for themselves. This will leave you really with 2 key problems. Number 1, they will not be focused on the daily responsibilities and be concentrating specifically on trying to find themselves another role. And second, if they find that other role before you filled that position, you're left with a group without a leader. Another reason you'll need to use an executive recruiter is when you need industry expertise. When you're recruiting for strategic roles with an organization, you need somebody that knows the industry that can represent you in the search. You can't afford to waste your time with a generalist recruiter, as they'll need some ramp-up time to build their contact base, as well as to gain an understanding and knowledge of the actual industry. You need somebody who can dive in headfirst from day one. The recruiter will need to fully understand the industry in order to actually gain the respect of the executive that they're interviewing. If the recruiter doesn't have a deep understanding of the field, that executive is not going to feel comfortable having them represent them to the company. Another reason, when you need a really strong and very deep Rolodex. An industry-specific recruiter such as the DEDIC Group will have a very deep contact base that can be called on for any given search. The Rolodex will be of people that we already have existing relationships with, and we know that they'll take our calls. Having a strong Rolodex will also allow us to execute the search faster and with a much higher probability of success. Another reason, an incredibly important reason, when you need a third party to evaluate a candidate's background. Now, I cover this in much greater detail in an episode that I created for DEDIC TV called Contingency versus Retained Search Firms. Retained recruiters such as the DEDIC Group will always sit down face-to-face with an executive and execute not just operational and technical evaluations of each candidate, but will also perform a full cultural evaluation to determine if the candidate's going to assimilate into the organization's corporate culture successfully. Now, I also cover how this process is executed in my episode on corporate culture. You can also find that on DEDIC TV. With contingency search firms, you're presented with a resume of a candidate. The recruiter is typically only phone interviewed. Contingency recruiters, they operate much more as a resume service, just providing resumes of candidates, then leave the responsibility of vetting and qualifying up to you. We believe just as you would never hire a candidate without meeting them face to face, we can't recommend them to you unless we've done the exact same thing. Another reason you'll use an executive recruiter is when you need an opinion on your direct competition. A retained executive recruiter will often know the competition and the executives running the business as well, if not even better than our clients will. We will know who the strongest leaders are, what they are looking for in their next roles, what it will take for them to leave, their compensation packages, and what motivates them for that next role in their career. And the reason for it's really simple. We've spent every day of every week talking with these executives, having lunch with them, having dinner with them, golfing with them, sharing our thoughts on the industry. Where engineering executives spend their time running and growing businesses and studying the industry, people are our business, and we spend our time getting to know them to understand what makes them tick. Another really important reason why you use an executive recruiter is because of accessibility. We have the ability to get the candidates and the executives on the phone and to meet with us to talk about the role. It's not enough just to know who someone is. You actually have to know them. And once we know them, we know that they'll always at least sit down with us and hear us out. This is one of the major reasons internal HR has such a tough time filling these roles. They don't have the relationships that lead to accessibility. On numerous occasions, I've heard of searches from internal HR as where they've contacted a specific executive on numerous occasions without any luck. Yet I'm able to get that executive on the phone in one call. It's because we've already invested months, if not years, getting to know that executive. Another reason you'll use an executive recruiter is when you actually need somebody on the outside to oversee the entire process. Because that's exactly what executive search is. It's a process. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot that can go wrong to kill a deal. An executive recruiter will help a lot in overseeing this process and will know exactly what to do if things start to go sideways. Or we know how to negotiate compensation packages on your behalf. And we're intimately familiar with what this candidate is looking for to make a deal happen. I've heard on so many occasions a company extends an offer, yet the candidate turns it down. And it leaves a company, quite frankly, shocked. This happens a lot, but it could be prevented. You could either ask the right questions early on in the interview process or ask the right questions during the interview to make sure that you understand exactly what this candidate is looking for to move forward. It's not always about money. There could have been a lot more responsibilities or they've wanted the opportunity to run a larger territory, a lot of other things that could have been involved. Often, this would have been completely acceptable to the client, but they just didn't know about it. So when they made the offer, it wasn't involved, and it was past the point of negotiations. I go over this a lot more and what could be done to prevent a lot of the mistakes in my episode on our recruitment process. Another reason that you would want to use an executive recruiter is when you actually want the security of knowing the search is being facilitated by a professional. Now, this goes back to the difference between contingency and retained search. With contingency recruitment, you're hoping the recruiter will at least identify somebody for the role. In retained recruitment, you have the security of knowing that the search is being facilitated. The proper calls are being made, and the right candidates are being interviewed for the role. With key leadership and strategic roles, You need to know that the process is being facilitated correctly and that you have somebody working day and night to make sure that executives are being identified. There's no room for mistakes or just hoping that it will be done. It just needs to be done. Another reason you'll want to use an executive recruiter is when you want external help defining the role itself. When you retain a search firm that is industry specific, value can be delivered before the search actually begins by helping shape the description of the role and discuss strategies for filling it. We can sit down with our clients and provide our input on what is realistic and what to expect to compensate for the role. Just the same, we can provide insight as to what will be unrealistic or if the compensation expectations are not at market value. Thanks a lot for listening to another episode of DEDIC TV. And for episodes on other topics, please visit DEDIC TV.